My name is Meshach M. I was born in the early 80s as the first son in a family of four in a city called Gombe. Growing up for me was average, with my father as a civil servant and my mom a teacher. As a Christian, we went to church, but I didn't understand the need or the essence of going to church. I was totally clueless about God. And I only knew Jesus from the pictures we saw in Sunday school. I was so clueless about God that when we go to our Muslim cousin's house for the holiday, we'll go to the mosque with them. And likewise, when they come to our house, we'll all go to the church. That was how I grew all through primary school and eventually to the secondary school. The first secondary school I attended was Federal Government College Azare in Bauchi State. I hated that school because of the bullying. As a result of that, I and two of my friends will escape to the bush, spend the whole day there, and sneak back to the hostels at night. We were not going to the classes. We only go to the classes at the end of the term to collect our report cards, maybe hoping that there will be a miracle. That was my life while in that school. You will agree with me that it was a recipe for a disastrous life. I'm sure if there were drugs, I would have been doing that in the bush. Despite my hatred for that school, my dad still insisted that I stay in the school because to him, it was a good school. But miraculously, after 2 terms, my dad agreed to change my school. That was a miracle, and definitely the unseen hand of God working in my life, even when I didn't know him. As my dad promised, he then sought to get admission for me in another school, the Government Gifted Secondary School, Gwagwalada, now School for the Gifted. A very good school, and it has very high standards, I must say. Gaining admission into the school is one thing. Staying in the school is another. It was a custom for applicants to write exams before they gain admission into the school. I was made to write the exam, and as you will guess, I failed. What would you expect from somebody who just came straight from the bush? But there was an unseen hand of God working and orchestrating my life. The principal offered to give me admission despite my poor performance, with the condition that I repeat my JS1, to which my dad quickly accepted. Now I've gained the admission. The next hurdle is how to stay in the school, because the pass mark is 60%. And if you don't make up to 60% at the end of the session, you are withdrawn. You can imagine how I would have coped in that school. Something miraculous again happened that helped me stay through the 6 years in that school. I noticed a group of gentle and very intelligent students in my class. They were always at the top of the class, and they caught my attention and my admiration. I also noticed that those students always attended the FCS, the Fellowship of Christian Students. And in my quest to be like them, I started attending the FCS. One fateful day in March 1997, at an FCS meeting, I gave my life to Christ. This singular decision of giving my life to Christ and accepting him as my Lord and Savior totally changed the trajectory of my life, from a dull, failing student to a bright and excellent student. I cherished and nurtured this new relationship all through my stay in that school. And at the time of graduation, I graduated with an excellent result that helped me to gain express admission to study architecture at the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. This could only have been God. While in the university, my new relationship with God was the focus of my life, and I grew more in love with God and fellowship with God. Fast forward, because the stories are so many. Fast forward to my final semester in my final year. I had just resumed to conclude the semester. And I remember, out of my fellowship and love for God, clearly hearing God telling me to drop out of school. Remember, I told you I'm the firstborn. And any decision I take will affect those coming after me. But despite that, I also consider the disappointments this will bring to my parents when they realize I have dropped out of school. But yet, I still decided to drop out because I love God more than all the reasons I considered. Technically, I had dropped out of school, but I was still within the campus. Because I had other engagements, I was the chairman of the final year album committee. What an irony. I had dropped out and I was chairing the committee for the final year students. So I was on campus, but I was also not attending classes. I wasn't doing any assignments or assessments. 2 months into the semester, I had not attended a single lecture. My classmates started asking questions. And in order not to raise any suspicion, I decided to start going to the lecture halls when the lectures are over, so that when they are coming out, I could just, greet them, exchange pleasantries. They will see my face and they will know that, okay, Malta is still around. All this I did to cover up for God, so that nobody will try to convince me to go back and finish school. I was determined to obey God. A few more weeks into the semester, I got a call from a friend, Ruben, who had dropped out of school in the second year. And with excitement, I said, Ruben, I've joined you. He said, what do you mean? I said, I've dropped out like you. And he was quiet for a while. And he said, I think we need to talk further. So he ended the call and called me at midnight. And I explained to him my position and the instruction I got from God to drop out of school. In response, he said, after the call we had in the afternoon, I have been praying for you. And God told me to give you a message. That God said he should tell me to go back and finish my studies. That he has seen my heart. That is, God has seen my heart and has accepted my sacrifice. Just like he accepted Abraham's sacrifice when he asked him to sacrifice Isaac. When I heard that, I was moved to tears at the realization that I loved God to the extent of sacrificing my education. I then accepted to go back to school. Remember, I had missed months of lectures and assignments. An architecture department is not an easy department. But I still went to write the exams anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of that semester, I had the best result I have ever had in my stay in the entire school. The highest. And as a result of that single result, I was able to graduate with a second-class upper. That could only have been God. I tell you, brothers and sisters, nothing can ever be too much sacrifice for God. He will always outgive you. That is not where my story ends. It even gets more interesting. Fast forward, finished school, moved to the city, started practicing. I started getting good clients at an early age. I was making a lot of money. My passion has been construction, and I began to design and build for notable organizations and individuals within the city. At the young age of 26, I was already a millionaire, running a thriving construction business with staff, cars, construction equipment. Money was not a problem. I and a few friends of mine will decide which country we want to visit, and we will travel there. Gradually, I began to lose touch of my love for God. And I began to lose that connection. Remember how I loved God while in the university. Now I was all about the money and the businesses. I no longer go to church at this point. I was just living an extravagant and reckless life as a result of the blessings of God. Not long into this extravagant life, I began to have issues and problems with my clients and friends. I no longer had peace. My business and finances began to go down, as you would all expect. In the midst of this chaos and terrible financial downturn of my businesses, I came across the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. I was at Barrister Noah Adano's office, a friend of mine. I was there for a meeting. And after the meeting, he invited me to the meeting of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship. I declined because I had people waiting for me in my office. And as you know, I didn't have time for God at that time. But he insisted And he said, in fact, it's an architect that will be speaking at that meeting. That got me interested. So I decided to go with him for the meeting. On getting to the meeting, it was Architect Wale Ademo, our NVP, that was speaking. That was 11 years ago. I'm sure you can remember, sir. 11 years ago. He was speaking. I was talking about vertical and horizontal relationships. If your horizontal relationships are not going well, then you need to check your vertical relationship with your maker. Brothers and sisters, as you already know, my horizontal relationships with friends and clients at that point was in a bad shape. Even my girlfriend at that time was no longer interested in the relationship. Now it was clear that I had to fix my vertical relationship with my maker. And at that meeting, a call was made and I decided to rededicate my life to God. The following week, I was the one that called Barrister Noah. Are you not going for the full gospel meeting at Rugby Royal? Because that meeting impacted my life. That was how my transformative journey in the full gospel began. I kept coming for meetings and listening to the amazing stories of men and how God has transformed their lives. I clearly remember the story of our national president, Architect Ifeanyi Odedo, that exposed me to the reality of near success syndrome that plagued my entire life. I also remember the story of our late DCESV, Dave Marcelli, on how God taught him how to do business the right way. That began to form the foundations of my new philosophies in business. Prior to this time, I never believed that you could be a good Christian and also a successful Christian. I just thought that somehow to be successful, you just have to be crooked in one way or the other. But these stories changed my life. When I came across the Full Gospel Businessman's Fellowship International and the wonderful testimonies I was hearing, those wrong beliefs were quickly erased. Despite rededicating my life and being committed to the fellowship, my dying business continued to crash until I had lost everything. I was homeless. I had no car, no staff, and no clients. I can't pretend that I knew or understood what was happening, why my business still had to crash after I've rededicated my life, until I had the testimony of Engineer Emeka Okeke. Then I realized that God does not build on faulty foundations. My old business had to go down to give God the room to build a brand new business for me. As I conclude my story, ladies and gentlemen, I recall the day the leadership of Abuja Glory Chapter appointed me to be the pioneer chapter president of the newly launched Pape Glory Chapter, 2014, 10 years ago. That same day, one of my angry clients sent soldiers to lock down my office. What a coincidence. So while I was kneeling down and they were praying for me as the new CP, I had two things in my mind. Should I face my dying business or should I do this work? While kneeling down, I decided to face God's business of building the chapter while I entrust my dying business to Him to build. Ladies and gentlemen, we truly serve a faithful God who did not just build up my business, He built me a bigger and a better business. He took me from emptiness and nothingness and put me among princes and great men like you can see today. He took me from having no car to being able to give out a car. He took me from being homeless to a place where I provide housing solutions for people through real estate development. From that broken relationship, when my girlfriend left me, God has given me a wonderful wife, and today we are blessed with two lovely children. Please join me as I return all the glory, all the praise and adoration to the King of Kings. Thank you very much.